The complex business world has changed drastically now more than ever. Leaders have to guide teams and prepare them for workplace challenges in new age ways. In this engaging fireside chat, Rajesh Padmanabhan, CEO, Talavvy and Manavi Baveja, Global Head Organization Development Uber, will share their insights on developing vision, endurance, and strategy to drive change in the workplace.
Hi, Manvi. Good to have you on this discussion. So we're all set up for this conversation by ETHR, and the conversation today is on strategy, vision, and endurance, which drives change at the workplace. Very interesting topic. I'm sure all of us are going through this particular aspect very closely, and I'm sure we're learning a lot. We're tripping on a few occasions as well, but nevertheless, very unprecedented. So very interesting topic. So happy to have this dialogue with you and the conversation, and really look forward to some of your experiences and learning as well. So if I were to just set the context, Manvi, I think if I were to use this particular word to say that change has been so rapid and undefined and caught us napping in this world of complexities today, but the element of transformation that has come along with that also has been a phenomenal aspect of an opportunity. And there are many organizations and many enterprises, and some of us, who work very closely in the client world, also have used this opportunity. Not that we get it right at all points of time, but it's been a clear opportunity to do something which is innovative, clearly a step forward, and experiment a few as well. So starting, I kicked off my almost a 3.5 decade industry experience. I've been through and through corporates. 6 by 6, I could define myself, 6 roles and 6 industries that I really been part of. Enjoyed every bit of it in what I did, but used this opportunity to get into the world of transformation. So, this is a topic which is very close to my heart as well. And I run a transformation lab, as I call it, called as Talavvy. And this transformation lab are in the areas of four. One, digital acceleration. Number two is people and culture change, which we're going to talk significantly about. The third one is branding and communication as a piece. And fourth is leadership services. And I believe transformation has got an industry status. Of course, there have been a lot of consulting firms which have been doing it, but I'm saying the need is much higher. We've also been having clients who actually do not really worry about what's the starting point of the thread or what's the end point of the thread. Just pick it up from wherever it is and actually want to, keep moving on. So before I hand it over to you, I think the only aspect that I would like to mention is what has been the architecture of this entire transformation is in Talavvy for me is business, people, and digital. So digital is a significant part of it because using that as a common denominator of change. So digital is the fulcrum of this entire transformation piece, and we work very closely on data, networks, and applications, and wrap around people and cultural change, and also the entire marketing, branding, and communication, plus the leadership part of it. So that's where I come from. That's where we're trying to talk as well. So we will definitely build on the focuses of the three elements that we need to. But before that, I just want to hand it over to you and ask you, what have you been going through, and what are some of the positives and some of the I would hate to use the word negatives, but what are some of the areas which have come as possible discoveries? Over to you, Mandi.
Thanks, Rajesh. Well, what I really liked about what you said was you put transformation and opportunities together side by side. I think that a lot of people see what we are going through as a challenge versus I think it's really an opportunity, like you mentioned. And there's a holistic way in which you talked about approaching it from a digital perspective, from a communication, branding perspective, from people perspective, and business perspective, of course. And, that really wraps around this whole transformation as an opportunity. It puts it in the light of opportunity. So that's exciting. And at Uber, I've been there for 5 years. we have been in the middle of this transformation. We've caused disruptions. We have ourselves been part of the upending of the industry. So been a part of this transformation and gone through this transformation ourselves in many ways. And 2020 has been a special year at that. So today, as we talk about transformations for HR and for workplaces in 2021, I think this is a really apt topic to talk about, which is change and how are we going to manage this change and what is really changing. So Rajesh, I loved how you gave a perspective from within an organization perspective, from your organization perspective. I would take a step back and maybe also support what you said in three different ways. I think I want to zoom out and talk about where are we headed in our macro environment, in a corporate environment, and then of course I want to talk about the workplace changes that we are seeing. And I'd love to talk a little bit about Uber examples between that. So, we all know, and all the audiences are very well aware that in 2020, the economy sort of shrunk. There was a shock to our economies and the way we, our GDPs, etc. And as we move to 2021, there's definitely recovery on the horizon. We're expecting 5 to 6% of GDP growth within economies. We are a consumer-led economy that's been established very well because the coming back of the economy has been based on the consumer behavior. What has also become very, very apparent is that the emerging markets would be leading this recovery. So, at a macroeconomic level, there are these changes that we're seeing. We'll also see changes in government behavior. They will be more involved, there'll be more focus on healthcare and all of that. So, COVID has led to these macro shifts. And from these macro shifts, the corporate world itself is also shifting. Like, for instance, at Uber itself, when 2020 happened, mobility business immediately went down very sharply. Nobody was taking rides to anywhere. Nobody was going anywhere. Obviously, we were supposed to shelter in place and stay in our houses. But people were really ordering, because when you stay in, that means things need to come to you. And so our mobility business in India, we don't have Eats, but mobility and groceries and medicines and all of those businesses were really picking up. So we pivoted immediately. We moved our resources and attention to this delivery side of business from mobility side of business. So corporates have seen this change of focus in products because of this new behavior that has come about in 2020. Of course, like you mentioned, there is AI, there's digitization that has come up, and organizations have had to embrace it much faster than they originally had planned to. I think few things are going to happen within the corporates. First of all, there's going to be huge focus on efficiency, frugality. That is going to, operational excellence. That's really going to take center stage. But what's going to be very interesting is that with this frugality, we will have to keep up the innovation, because the products need to look different in this new world. So that kind of balance will need to be brought in. Digitization, automation would be there. There would be a green consciousness in the way we do business, because environment is going to become hugely important, more important than it was before. So all of these macro changes in our economy and in our corporate culture are leading to some changes within workplaces as well. The transformations like we're talking about in 2021, what would be those transformations? A lot of different skills and competencies would be needed. In fact, there's this study that shows that 33% of the skills that were needed back in 2017 would not be needed in 2021. So we're looking at a future of work where we don't know what the skills would look like, but we know we need to move towards it. We need a transformation in that sense of what people bring to work. The organizations have to be more nimble, more agile. They have to be more open to change. I'm really hoping COVID doesn't come back or pandemics don't come back, but the economies and the industry is upending at a much faster pace. There is a much faster pace of disruption that's happening. So organizations have to be very quick to respond to that change. I think leadership benches have been unrepresented for far too long, and that needs to change as well. We really need to bring about more diversity up and forward, and that needs to change. And those are some big trends that I see coming in 2021. So as we set the stage between both you, Rajesh, and me, I think we are thinking that, of course, the world has got upended. Of course, there has been disruption, but it's all an opportunity. All this transformation is an opportunity, and we are moving towards a better and more balanced world And we really have to make sure that we are ready for that world. But it's going to be a different world for sure.
Thank you. I think that's amazing. I think the two or three points that really resonate very, very well with me, and though you may not have used it, I would like to define it. I think what's really standing out is the commercial businesses along with the social businesses is becoming very important. People are not just questioning the what of the businesses, how you run your business is becoming possibly more important than the what of the businesses. Number one. Number two is also in our own profession, we discovered that work has become a subset of life, and the importance of life is something that's really gone up. So clearly, the redefinition of life, livelihood, and work just being one part of it has got very sharply defined, and it's really accentuated. So which is a good thing, which possibly was not the realization when we practiced balance work life and stuff like that. We were still considering how do we balance life into work, but not the other way around. So I think excellent takeaways from what you said, but just want to focus on one thing, one aspect, since the topic is more around vision, strategy, and endurance. I think there's a lot to talk on the endurance bit of it, because there's a lot of resilience, tenacity, and all of that that we built. But the aspect of vision, how do you see that? Do you really see in this entire complex business world amid crisis with that extra level of urgency? How do you see the three elements? Maybe that's something which will bring a little bit of light. I'll give you my bit of it. I think vision has become a little short in my view. I mean, I'm speaking on behalf of the client world as well. So people are talking of 1 to 2 years kind of a life cycle, yeah, where they have some kind of a visibility. If somebody were to say that in my industry or in my space, I can see much beyond, I think he or she is really bluffing, because there's a lot of stuff that needs to be brought together. Number one. Strategy. Now, if I were to talk of strategy, I think it's possibly the most abused word in management parlance. Anybody who uses strategy possibly understands strategy little less than what the usage of strategy is, much more than the understanding of the word strategy. So I simplify strategy even in the client world to say, if you have vision, action, goals, and results sharply defined, that's what strategy is all about. Vision is where you need to go. You need to have the clear goals of what you're going to achieve, what are the actions to achieve those goals, and how are you going to track the results to get there. Is the simplest business strategy that I define to the client world. And the endurance part of it, I think there's a tons of stuff that so the world has really got completely redefined. And then there are plenty of stuff, and I put the entire client world into 2 or 3 buckets. Some of them are like just managing to swim, managing to survive. I call them the survivors. Some of them are really trying to get back to where they have lost. So they are the levelers. And some of them are excellers. I mean, they're seeing this as an opportunity and want to go much beyond, using other opportunities as possibly accelerators of growth and getting there. So what's your take on those three dimensions, the vision, the endurance, and the strategy piece?
Yeah, I'm with you on this, Rajesh. The way you've defined it is how we also experience it. Vision was supposed to be really long term, and people could see not just, I think 5 year visions were also made at some point. I think it's a moving target now, because with COVID, as soon as it set in, even even smaller functions within an organization. For instance, I will talk about, let's say, people development. We were ready in January with like massive things that we want to do with the development of our folks, etc. COVID happened, and we had to literally pivot to a whole different place and say, well, people really don't need any learnings right now. What people need is support. What people need is addressing of where they are, an acknowledgement, and they want to learn skills of how to engage virtually. And so we had to really pivot. So at the tiniest level to a macro level, where Uber actually shifted its focus from one product to another product and moved its engineering capabilities from one product to another product. From the micro to the macro level, vision saw itself moving very, very quickly. And I expect that to be the case. So I think it's been the word of the past. I don't see it to be a word in the future, unless if we look at the time dimension of vision and shorten it drastically. At Uber, we actually create quarterly goals. We have, every quarter, and the word that's been overused and abused, strategy, we change it every 3 months, because
Mm.
we have to keep up with how the world is moving. So, like you said, both vision and strategy are like moving targets. They are definitely changing, and if organizations and people who are not changing with it, then you're missing out on opportunities. You are selecting and you're choosing to stare in a direction which is probably changed many times, but you're refusing to look at the changes if you stick with the long term vision, long term strategy point of view. So I think moving with the way the pace of the world, the vision and strategy is moving target, changes often. We need to be agile about that. And I think endurance between the three is the most important word, because
Sure.
next year, I don't know what the world will bring about, how the economies are going to change. The future of work is very questionable. So we don't know our vision and strategy. But what we do know is we have to endure this change. If we have to in order to be successful through these changing times, endurance is going to help us remain resilient and remain agile and reactionary to these changes, so that we can also move our businesses at the same pace. So that's pretty much my take on the three words, Rajesh. um,
Awesome.
One thing I would ask you, you mentioned about these levelers, and the whole analogy that you used was really interesting. And maybe we can take a little bit of a dive into the work world, and really my question to you is about this whole transformation story, about the workforce and where it's headed, and why is this change, and why is this change essential, and where are we going to land in the future? Do you have any thoughts around, you have, I'm sure, consulted with so many organizations, seen them through transformations. Where do you think this is going to lead?
Sure, and great question. And this is something that you'll get a very passionate response from me. Having dealt with a lot of life cycle transformations in different companies and conglomerates that I've been part of, I clearly believe this is an era where life cycle is moving to lifestyle. And I'll speak a little bit more and clarify this as well. So, what we conventionally used to do in the HR parlance in terms of having defined career graphs, life cycle, hire to retire, putting them through, stacks of various things, showing them the world of, performance, potential, how would they grow, etc. A lot of them are under pressure for redefinition. Yeah. And even some of them, would they even exist in this world of today? Number one. Number two is while we talk about all of this entire transformation, I think one also needs to understand and possibly experience, and this is what we are seeing, that there's a lot of experience that people are looking for rather than really building years of experience. So they're looking at the quality of experience. So I'm sure nobody is looking at the tenure of the experience. So it really doesn't matter whether it's a 6 months or a 30 years, but people are looking at what's the quality, what is that I've really benefited out of it. So it's not conventionally that we used to plot engagements in the way we used to really do some of those surveys. I've actually taken a little bit of a backseat. So it's more pulse and some of those three drivers that I'm seeing in a very, very amorphous workplace that's getting redefined. And I'm using that again as an opportunity. Businesses are going through ups and downs. Digital is actually virtually going vertical. That's the pace at which it's moving. And here we have people where the ambition to grow is fairly high, but the fear and anxiety is higher than that. The capabilities that the enterprise want is lower than that. And the capabilities of relevance is possibly even 30 to 40% lower than that because of the nature of what change or what capabilities we need to drive in the next 3 to 4 years. Not too many people understand in terms of how to build it. So that's an area of opportunity. I think core stuff like this will come into play. I don't know whether you agree, disagree, but this is some of the stuff that's actually going through. And we have, all kinds of, conversations in the client world and in the consulting world. So, that's my take, but would love to get your views also on this so that I'm able to, clearly pick up some industry views as well on this.
Yeah, I think when you started to talk about careers and organizations and how organizations are going to view careers, I think again, I'm aligned there. Organizations are no more a place for career hibernation. It's not like you get in there, you spend 20 years, and you come out with this trophy of having spent that kind of time in an organization. And I obviously don't want to offend any long haulers in organizations. I think there are organizations and there are people that are best suited to that sort of a career graph. I think the organizations of today are, I think it's best to assume that they're career accelerators. You land there, you may have a short stint, but it is not about the quantity, it's about the quality. You land there, you take up challenges, you go through very different roles. In 5 years or at Uber, I myself have probably done 4 roles already. So you pick up different challenges, you go through different roles, and you're able to learn more just in time rather than develop skills over time through trainings, through learnings. No, it's really about you're doing the role, you're in chaos, you're handling a challenge right now. This is the support you need. You learn by failing rather than you learn by looking into presentations. So I think that world is definitely changing. And we have to keep pace with it to ensure that we already, even before 2020, I think millennials had hit us at the workplace, and that was also very different. This is a different kind of experience because there is this whole idea of empowerment, entitlement, with which they enter the workplace and they want to learn and they want real intentful learning and challenges. And it is very interesting. We did this work life balance and stress sort of a survey, and people came out like, obviously there was heavy stress in the organization. So we went in and we were like, okay, what is the stress about? We started to ask people. What we realized was that people actually were stressed that they didn't have enough work. They were stressed that they don't have enough challenges. They were stressed that their managers are not giving them enough attention, enough coaching, enough mentoring. It was nothing to do with I don't get time to spend with my family or with myself. None of that, like what we would imagine a work life balance stress to be coming out of. No,
Sure.
this is a set of people who want excitement. And I think that's what workplaces have to become. They have to be so agile. To your point, when you are linking a person's contribution to EBITDA, there has to be so much clarity in the system. There has to be so much transparency in the processes for you to be able to make that direct linkage. And that's what organizations need to do to even be agile and flexible, is make sure that there is not too much processes. People don't have to go through too many layers. Decision making should be very close to where action is happening. And so all of these things will really make organizations more agile, more flexible, for people to have that impact, see the impact, at the bottom level. And I think that's the kind of place we are all evolving into. Of course, I mean, 2021, if we look at what will we land having transformed, I think there will be a new virtual world set up. People will no
Yeah.
longer be just in offices. They'll be in offices, they will be at home, and there will be a third place. You know how people are doing work from mountains in India.
Sure, sure.
It will be this third place that HR will have to engage them into as well. And efficiencies and innovations will go hand in hand. That will be a new transformative place also in 2021. I believe resilience, agility, which we've talked about so much, is going to be at the center of an organization keeping up with the change. Like I said, underrepresentation, diversity, all of that needs to be really, really pushed along. And so that will be a huge focus in 2021. And I think finally, just focus on being green, being more environment conscious. And how do organizations, like at some earlier point you mentioned, it's in social world, it's also in an individual world, it's into the lifestyle world, it's in the green space as well. So the organizations will have to find their new place between all these worlds of their employees and of the world.
Awesome, awesome. I can relate to a lot of stuff that you spoke of. One area that really, that's something that we should be touching upon is how has leading teams changed in this entire game. So if I were to give you my own take on this, and I block quite heavily on this as well, I believe that leadership doesn't sit at the top of the organization; it sits at the center of the organization. And I call it the conventional part of putting people in boxes and doing those drop downs have become so stale. I say that the leadership is at the center, and you need to have circles of influence which you draw around. That's what a new organization structure is all about. So from a managing to influencing has become so sharp, and the need in terms of not just driving capabilities, but also the mindset and the culture change that goes along with it. And definitely a sweet spot for us. Take a little bit of a position on the three elements of vision, strategy, and endurance. And if I were to distribute 100 in this, I would do vision 40, endurance 30, and strategy 30. What would be your kind of a take on this if you were to distribute?
For me, endurance takes the cake. I think vision and strategy will continue to be important but to be agile and flexible and moving is far more important. So the how of it and the endurance of it for me will take the cake.
Thank you. I think this has been a fascinating discussion. It also redefines me in the consulting world. When I said vision and strategy takes 40 and 30 and endurance 30, so I know what to sell to the client world. So thank you so much. It's been a fascinating discussion and
Thanks.
loved every bit of it, and plenty of takeaways.
Thank you, Mr. Padmanabhan and Ms. Baveja, for an interesting session. Stay tuned.